Any view from the International Space Station, unfortunately. Ah, there it is. We've got it now.
Yep, it's just come back online.
Took all the images out.
So the forward.
Seems like a temperamental
Nathan, what
stream.
one have you got? The
and
forward?
That's from NASA
Oh, yeah.
TV right now, the edge of Hurricane Matthew, but it's struggling massively at the moment, it seems. So this might be the only image we get of this particular pass, but that's the latest there. And we'll see what happens with that. But there's a view from space. And it is in motion. There we are. We're starting to see the hurricane appear on the horizon now.
Anyways, the NHC cone over the next 3 days takes this thing off to the north and west, making a very close approach or landfall on Cape Canaveral, and then basically parallel the entire eastern seaboard until it gets out to roughly Charleston, South Carolina, not as far north as it previously was, and then move out towards the east and maybe a little bit to the south of east. After that, it's where does the storm go? It's really up for grabs how Matthew and Nicole interact. Obviously, Nicole much smaller, much weaker up and off to the north and east. Not going to.
And also, with that being the case, likely for Matthew to influence Nicole rather than Nicole influencing Matthew, because obviously Matthew being bigger and stronger will do more effect on Nicole than Nicole doing effect on Matthew.
Correct, but both storms are likely to be rather weak getting out to the 3 to 4 day period, so they might be comparable strengths there. I think the most interesting thing to take away from this cone is it's expected to basically stall right off the Savannah-Charleston coast there for the 12 hours between 36 and 48 hours out now. It's expected to basically move very slowly or even stall off of that coast, which would obviously mean very heavy rain for that area. Probably not as much as Joaquin dropped in South Carolina. I'm pretty sure everyone remembers that in that area. But definitely a rather sizable amount of rain would fall if this thing were to stall just off the coast there.
Alright, well, we're going to take a short break. We're going to leave you with the stunning views here from the International Space Station. We're back in 3. Hello, welcome back. This is Force 13 Live. The current time is 5:01. My name's Nathan Foy, and you're looking at the International Space Station and its coverage of the storm as it's flown by in space just now. I'm joined by the Skype team, of which I believe it's a busy one right now. Oh goodness, there's 7 people in the room. So take it in turns to speak, if I may. It might get a little bit crazy this next hour. Okay. Well, let's begin with what Devon's showing us at his request. It's the radar imagery.
Yes, this is currently the long-range imagery coming out of Miami, Florida. The storm's not exactly expected to pass close to Miami. It's expected to pass close to areas north, like Melbourne, Daytona Beach, Cape Canaveral, the Space Coast, all the way up to Jacksonville, and might actually continue to parallel the coast, maybe even all the way up to Charleston, South Carolina. Kind of similar to David, but of 1979, but there are differences. I want to go off here by currently reading over what the watches and warnings are. So here they are. A hurricane warning is in effect for the following areas in the Bahamas: the Abacos Islands, Andros Island, Berry Islands, Bimini, Eleuthera, Grand Bahama Island, and New Providence Island. And now hurricane warnings are in effect north of Golden Beach to the South Santee River, as well as Lake Okeechobee. A tropical storm warning is in effect from Chokoloskee to Golden Beach, the Florida Keys from the 7 Mile Bridge eastward, the Florida Bay, and the Antelope River to the Suwannee River. And also, tropical storm warnings are in effect from north of South Santee River to Surf City, and a tropical storm watch is in effect from north of Chokoloskee to the Antelope River. Elsewhere in the Florida Peninsula, the Florida Keys, Carolinas, Georgia, and maybe even Bermuda, because it might shift that far east, should carefully watch what this storm does over the next 4 to 5 days.
Sorry guys, I'm back. I had to go do something.
Okay, if you've got any comments or questions for us, we'll get them through to you. Miles Patterson wants you to show infrared imagery, and, well, would you, lo and behold, it's there.
Yes, not the infrared imagery that I want to show, but it's infrared imagery nonetheless. Let's see if it'll let me show the infrared imagery that I want to show. Of course not. So I'm just going to give you guys the next best thing, which is going to be this. Here on this infrared satellite imagery, you have the yellows turning to oranges, turning to reds, and the yellows indicate not so tall cloud tops, and the reds and the grays indicating rather tall cloud tops, and of course the blues and the whites and grays outside of the blues either indicate very low cloud tops or no clouds at all. And you can see that the eye's been teasing to come out for probably about 14 hours now. Longer than that. I think the eye's probably teased to come out for about 4 days now. And it hasn't.
No
reason to really
not the link I'm looking at. Not the one that Jason sent.
There's really no reason to expect that it will, because it just hasn't. Of course, this storm also, if I go back over to radar and show you guys, this also has a double eyewall feature to it. It has an outer eyewall that's probably about 70 to 80 miles wide, and there's an inner eye that's maybe only 10 miles wide on radar, and that inner eye is where the most intense storm. That's where the most intense winds are. That's where your Cat 3, Cat 4 winds are, right on the northeastern edge in the right front quadrant of the storm. Luckily, that is currently not expected to move ashore, or at least not significantly move ashore. And the storm's just expected to parallel the Florida coast. Something that is a little concerning from the newest National Hurricane Center cone is that in about 1.5 to 2 days from now, so that's going to put us at, what, Saturday, I believe, this storm is expected to move very slowly or stall off the Georgia-South Carolina coast, which would produce very, very heavy rainfall for both of those areas. Probably not as much as Hurricane Joaquin dropped in South Carolina, but still very significant nonetheless. Okay.
All right. We can take you to... Well, we could have taken you, but I think we will be taking you to one of the webcams somewhere on the screen. Maybe not right now, and... Oh, there it is. Nope, still... There it is.
Okay,
At Hillsborough,
so
that's
what
right.
location
That's what it looks like there
be?
right now, with some gusty winds occurring there.
Latest drop sun shows 939 millibars at the surface in the eye with nearly 25 mile per hour winds. So, yeah, that'll probably be revised down a few millibars. So there's a likelihood that this thing's around 937, maybe even as low as 936 right now. So that would be a strengthening of, I believe, 1 millibar from the last pass through. I believe that's a strengthening of
I do also want to mention two people who are still preparing, something that I've noticed that is going on. I would ask people to try and hold back on the liquor. I know several liquor stores in Florida is now all sold out because people believe that liquor is one of the top things in their hurricane survival kit. I suggest laying off the liquor. You need to try to be as clear-minded as possible, because we don't want you to be running around drunk in the storm and getting smacked by debris.
Yes, there will be a lot of free debris running around, especially if the radius of maximum winds, where the Cat 3, Cat 4 winds are. If that comes ashore, debris will be everywhere. Don't be out in the streets during this storm. Please don't be out in the streets during this storm.
And I suggest that if your hurricane supply kit consists of more than 50% alcohol, I suggest not drinking it until after majority of the dangerous bit moves away.
Yeah, in fact, never mind even having alcohol there. Literally, do us all a favor with it. Tip it out the window or tip it down the lute and flush it. Just literally get rid of the alcohol, because if you think during a hurricane, you're likely to get killed by doing something stupid.
The unfortunate part there, Craig, is that...
I completely agree.
The unfortunate part there, Craig, is that people are very likely to not do that. So the thing that I would suggest is that if you're going to enjoy or celebrate this storm in some way, at least do it in somewhat of a responsible fashion.
Yes.
Like I said, don't go out in the streets while the storm's coming ashore. That's bad news. I think I wanted to show this really quick, actually, from the recon data, and this really shows up nice, actually. You can see clearly that there are 2 peaks on both sides of the eye, which is here, and you can see also here 2 peaks, which clearly shows the concentric eyewall feature. You can see here again 2 peaks. Got the peak there. There's the eye. And there was some data emitted here. I don't know what exactly happened there, but if there were to be a second peak, it would probably be somewhere in that area, if one so happened to exist. This would be further down, actually. This would be weaker, like down here, But definitely, even on the recon data, a very pronounced double eyewall feature on this storm.
Most definitely. What do you guys think of the direction of the storm? It's going more towards Freeport, but I think it's starting to veer back to the west just a little bit.
Yes, well, hurricanes don't typically like going over land, so it's not surprising to me, anyways, that it's starting to hook back to the west. You notice
Nor
it just went in between Nassau and the largest of the Bahama Islands there. So it
nor
just
do they like going in a straight line.
and
They
yeah,
don't like going in
want
straight lines
to
either.
either. And it'll kind of zigzag its way probably towards the Florida coast. Again, it's expected to make a rather close passage to Melbourne. I do have Melbourne radar. The storm does not look good on the Melbourne radar right now, which is why I'm not showing it. But maybe towards the later hours of tonight when it gets on the other side of the Bahamas here and maybe starts getting in line with West Palm Beach or Fort Pierce, we can start looking at the Melbourne radar of the system, and we will be able to see the storm up close and personal from that radar.
There is a dry pocket that's entering the Palm Beach as we speak right now. A little dry pocket, then more rain, obviously, from this hurricane as it veers, zigzags, as they said earlier, toward Florida.
I have a question for the team from Static Code. What made the storm track go from straight into North Carolina to do a loop? Anybody like to pick up on that point? Comment.
Basically, what happened there is that hurricane. Yes, it is a hurricane now. I have to accept that fact. Hurricane Nicole got significantly stronger than any of the models expected it to. A lot of the models expected it to stall, dissipate, and get sheared by the storm that is currently on the screen right now, Hurricane Matthew. That miraculously didn't happen, and it continues to miraculously increase in strength. And as it continues with that miracle, the closer that Nicole and Matthew get in intensity, the more that the two will start to affect each other. And by that day 4, day 5, they're expected to be close to each other at nearly the same strength, which is going to pull the two storms kind of together. And then there's a little dry pocket that's separating the two storms, and that's going to make the two storms basically diverge on each other. Nicole will go to the north, Matthew will go to the south, and that's what's going to cause this really weird loop that's currently
Yeah.
dissipating by day 3, which is looking unlikely. Then yeah, it would have to be the case that Matthew would go to North Carolina, but that is a very, very unlikely case right now.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, I'll just share screens just to show a graphic. Not only is Nicole kind of blocking the system from kind of going towards it, but there's also a strong area of high pressure ridge, Bermuda High, kind of blocking any movement further north than South Carolina in general, because this ridge is much stronger than they were saying it was going to be a few days ago. Mm-hmm. And then if you move like 3 days out, roughly, or 2 days out of the forecast,
do that.
This is the 12Z GFS. You also have the other ridge of high pressure right here that, because of its clockwise flow, it'll push the storm southward as well, and that's basically stopping it from deciding to go up the coast or just out to sea.
Yeah, but that's the weakness in the ridge right there, Strat, that you would normally think that the storm would go up into, but again, this is likely to there's likely to be some interaction between Matthew and Nicole, especially if Matthew continues to weaken as much of the models say that it will, weaken rather significantly as it moves up the coast. And if it does that, then yeah, I can definitely see this storm getting pulled away out to the east, and then the Nicole and Matthew interacting, pulling Nicole to the north, pulling Matthew to the south, and then that ridge that you see there on day 3, that's going to build to the north of it. That's going to kick the storm back west again.
I will also say, my concern with them saying the storm's going to weaken as fast as it does, 'cause I noticed, right around when it gets up to South Carolina, there's at least the IR simulated satellite. This isn't actually what will happen. This is just like a prediction of what the satellite will look like. The more the colors go up, the stronger the rain. I notice it heavily shears the storm off, especially this way in particular. What I don't really like about that, going back to vorticity, is there's no real area of low pressure to shear the storm, really. No trough.
No, that shear would be coming from the interaction between Matthew and Nicole.
But at this point here, they're still quite a distance away from each other. If this model runs correct, this is 3 days out.
You would be surprised how far out the outflow of a couple of hurricanes can reach. In fact,
they could get pretty big.
Yeah, the outflow between Matthew and Nicole, they're interacting now as we are speaking, actually. And even though the storms look far apart, they can continue to interact even if they're just right there.
Yeah, that is true.
And we do have other severe weather activity taking place other than Matthew, NWS, Topeka, take cover tornado warning, including Clifton, KS, Palmer, KS, Vinning, KS until 4:45. Confirmed tornado in the Colorado farmlands.
There's actually a tornado warning as well.
Yeah, not the first
right
one.
Near
There's been
Concordia.
about 3 or 4 on there.
Yeah.
The tornado warnings are only going to grow more numerous as we head into the evening hours as well, 5 through 8 p.m. That's when that's when the tornadoes really like to fire up here in the state.
Yeah. Pretty big splot
I'd actually
here.
like to.
What about Kansas City? That'd be my next question. What about Kansas City with that tornado threat?
Tornado is coming.
Kansas City is definitely within the tornado watch, and should definitely be concerned about the tornado, the chances of the tornado. And if they're not directly in the tornado watch, they're right on the fringes of it. Maybe only one county left. So
they are a county away. I'm trying to find exactly. There, I know. There's, unless it's really far up north here. No, it's not in Kansas City, but it's quite close. Kansas City.
Because you guys gotta understand, I am just north of Kansas City. So if I go under a tornado warning, I'm done.
I would keep an eye on the weather there then, because. Yeah,
okay, guys, we got the tornado warning is current also for Washington counties.
Okay. I won't draw attention here to the latest frames here in the radar, and you can kind of see the inner eye starting to wane off. The outer eye wall is starting to take precedence here, and what that could mean is. That could mean 2 things. A, it could mean that the inner eye wall just completely dies off and it starts to rapidly strengthen before hitting Florida. That would be a bad day. Or B, the storm, and I think the far more likely option is that the storm does not actually strengthen from it, but rather it expands its wind field quite and ends up being a little bit weaker than it was pre-Eyewall replacement cycle, rather than rapidly intensifying before shore. And that looks like that's what's going to happen here because this outer eyewall, like I said, it's around 60 miles in diameter here, which is huge. It's obviously contracting, and it will continue to contract as it continues to form. But I don't think that this outer eyewall will go all the way down to the 10-mile wide eye that is currently in the center. But the inner eye is definitely starting to fade out on Matthew. The outer eyewall is starting to take precedence.
Definitely. That's not the best news. Either way, both situations aren't really the best because you don't want an expansion of the wind field either. But
Oh no! Expansion of a significant expansion of the wind field can actually mean can actually be a lot worse in this situation.
yep,
And
because that spreads it out to areas that are unprepared.
Winfield. Because here's the thing: if the storm decides to rapidly intensify from this high wall replacement cycle, that's actually going to likely pull the storm up and off to the east. So that would be maybe even, dare I say, good news for Florida. Take that with a grain of salt, obviously, but that would likely pull the storm more east. Now, if the wind field expands, obviously that will likely bring tropical storm force winds for everybody in Florida, and that's not a good news. Tropical storm force winds are bad enough, and that could also bring sustained hurricane force conditions as far inland as Orlando, even though that it's offshore, and that would not be a good day as well, because hurricane force winds alone, that's strong enough to throw debris, throw rather large objects out in the street rather far distances. So, again, don't be out in the street. Don't be near any windows as the storm passes. Definitely something to stress. And make sure that you're in a sturdy building. If you haven't yet evacuated and you are planning to evacuate, I would do it absolutely as soon as possible. From what I know, most grocery stores in Florida are empty. Most gas stations in Florida are empty. Another thing that many people don't think about, especially with an emergency plan like this, make sure that any and all prescription medications are up to date, although it might be a little too late to be thinking about stuff like that. I warned about the storm coming near Florida before this storm was even near Haiti. I warned, like, you should probably start to get ready. If evacuation orders were to be planned, have your kits ready, be ready to bug out, money, gas, prescription medication, all that. I warned about this when the storm was south of Haiti, and that was the time to really start to prepare for the storm. Even though it's far out, yes, that was really the time to start preparing for the storm. If you're just starting to prepare for the storm now, it may be a little too late, because I imagine all the streets in Florida, especially on I-95, I gotta imagine they've got packed. And especially down in Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and West Palm Beach, which are probably getting, if not sustained winds of tropical storm force, at least gusts of tropical storm force. We don't really want people out on the streets when those winds are hitting, because even though you're like, oh, it's only 40-mile-per-hour winds, that can easily be enough to send small objects through the air at high speeds, shatter windows, and that glass shattering, they become projectiles, and rather deadly ones.
I see, Devon, the visibility going down on Hillsborough by the looks of it. Hillsborough. And it would appear that it's getting a little bit inclement over there. That's just north of... well, that's further north. I can't recall how far north of Miami it is, but it's to the north.
between Miami and Fort Lauderdale, they're getting a pretty heavy rain band right now, so that's probably why.
And would you like to possibly show us some visible satellite imagery? Because I think that's been looking quite interesting in recent
Yes,
frames.
I do have a good link that I can
Okay,
pop up as well
Let's
from
do visible
Titusville.
satellite imagery, and well, it shows a clouded eye.
And again, you can see those double eye walls as well, quite clearly.
That was what I was about to say. You can definitely see the concentric eye walls in this system, even though the imagery bugs out there because.
I do have a bit more of a zoomed in one that's from Titusville or Melbourne. That
Visible satellite imagery from Melbourne?
I'm not sure if it's from Melbourne. It shows the general area of Southeast Florida. It's a bit more zoomed in. Even though you can still see pretty clearly the second eye, the eye still looks pretty strong in this picture in particular. At least in the last frame.
It's starting to fade away though, radar.
Yeah, I'll just it was definitely much more clear, like I guess here than it is right now.
If you've got any questions for us, start your message with Force13 in the comments. And you can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Search Force13 all in text, or you can add Fool13 on Skype. That's FOOL13.
I will say though, in the last two frames of this visible, the storm eye does look much clearer than it has basically anywhere else in this loop that we see. So that's something interesting to keep an eye on. Looks like it's gonna try to make landfall on another Bahama island as well.
Yeah, it's gonna clip the western part there. I imagine it's just gonna clip there. They're definitely gonna get the strongest part. They're definitely gonna get the strongest front of that inner eye wall there.
Yeah.
That's holding on to the Cat 3, Cat 4 force winds.
I would say also my concern, like you said, if it rapidly intensified, it would move a bit east of track.
Yes.
My main concern with that in particular is that, this storm was way stronger than forecast its whole lifetime, and it still moved west of its forecast track.
It really didn't, though. It actually moved quite a bit to the east because
once it got really intense,
most of the 3-day guidance actually had this storm going over Jamaica for some point of time, and then it eventually shifted over to Haiti. Now, while it was in the Caribbean, it didn't exactly intensify as fast as everyone. It didn't exactly intensify as soon as everyone predicted it to be, and then it really ramped up and slowed down and whatnot. So that's why that was further west.
Yes,
but most of the model guidance actually did tremendously well with this system out to the long range, which is actually.
But do remember at first, the first forecast cone for 5 days was into the Dominican Republic instead of out all the way to Jamaica and then back into Haiti.
That's not bad. That's not bad error for 7 days, though. That's really good for 1 week out for tropical cyclones that are usually chopped up in predictions by the models.
Could we also draw attention briefly to Nicole and its track forecast?
Yes, I can actually bring that up as well. Nicole actually strengthened up to 85 miles an hour and 982 millibars. It's moving north-northwest at 7 miles an hour. This is a weird track, to say the least. It kind of points it still moving out this way for like a couple, like maybe a day at most, and then curves it back at a faster rate down to the south before turning it back out to the north and west again. Actually, now it does show re-intensification of Nicole, and instead of weakening continuously from here to here, it strengthens back into a hurricane in a 5-day forecast.
Yeah, interesting.
That's exactly what Nicole. I would label as annoying.
Why?
Because it's just moving nowhere, kind of becoming a hurricane, maybe, and
Like
then
you
moving a
said.
little bit to the west, and then moving a little bit to the south, and then moving a little bit to the north, and then moving back to the west again, maybe experiencing some effects with Matthew, depending on how strong Nicole is at that point. Maybe Nicole might be able to maintain its intensity out to 5 days, and Matthew become weaker than Nicole. That would be a really interesting track to see between the two systems. In which case, Nicole might actually not be as insignificant of a threat to land as what I've been describing it as, because that would bring Nicole a lot closer to the United States. But that would be a really interesting thing to see out to 3, 4, 5 days if Nicole maintains its intensity and Matthew weakens rather significantly, or maybe even potentially moves a decent amount inland over Georgia and South Carolina. That would allow Nicole basically to dominate its entire environment, and that would just be a really interesting thing to see. I have Melbourne radar up right now, and boy, I gotta say,
pull it up.
Orlando is getting hit. Looks like they're getting either hit very hard right now or just got done getting hit with a rather impressive rain band coming through. Wouldn't have been surprised if there were tropical storm force winds involved with that rain band, and you can kind of see that stretching all the way from just to the south of Daytona Beach across Orlando down to Sebring and looping all the way back down the turnpike, I believe that is there, all the way back down to Miami and into the storm. So a very impressive rain band there nonetheless, that just came ashore maybe a few hours ago, and, well, just got done hitting Orlando.
Richard wants to see a current sea level pressure chart of Matthew.
Okay.
We don't often show
try,
synoptic charts, but we might be able to do that.
Yeah, well, I'll try to find one of those.
Watching.
Yeah,
I guess I'll look at
the
the recon to see if I can find a good data point in particular for sea level pressure. Let's see.
We're still looking at the stream from Hillsborough Beach, Florida, and it's still looking very breezy along there, but nothing too dramatic so far along the coast there.
Anybody on the beaches?
Not at this vantage point, though I imagine there's probably still people on Miami Beach, no doubt. They were a few hours ago.
Yeah, it's not the best choice, really.
No, it's not.
Someone asked if it hit Miami yet. It's impacting Miami right now, that's for sure. But is it over in Miami? Definitely not yet.
Devon, do you think... Well, the storm has passed north of Miami latitude-wise. So do you think the worst is over there?
I wouldn't necessarily say that, because this storm, all of a sudden, for whatever reason, decides to take a jog to the west. No.
And also, like you were mentioning earlier,
and I don't want to say that's very likely, but it's pretty likely that the storm might just take a sudden jog to the west, in which case Miami can receive hurricane force conditions. So I don't want to say that Miami's in the clear yet, but
and
if
also, like you mentioned,
if the storm keeps going on its path, Miami should be receiving the worst of the storm, probably in about a half an hour to an hour.
Okay.
Yeah. Also keep in mind, though, what you mentioned. If instead of rapidly strengthening from the Eyewall replacement cycle closing and instead of having the wind field expand, which you did say was more likely, Miami could be under tropical storm force winds for longer periods of time.
Yes, and that's another thing, is that if the wind field significantly expands, one of the storms that did that right before landfall was Hurricane Gene. It was kind of like this tiny system while it was looping around. And then it did that Eyewall replacement cycle before landfall, and it became huge. And David did something similar as well, if I remember correctly, in a very similar location. Obviously, David was much weaker than this storm, so I don't want to really drive home too many comparisons between the two. But yeah, for its area, it seems like that would be the more likely scenario. Now, someone asked me to pull up a pressure map for Hurricane Matthew. This is about the best that I could find. Certainly nothing zoomed in. But this is as of 2 o'clock on the eastern coast.
Yep. I also noticed as we were talking about the Eyewall replacement cycle process, I noticed that on visible satellite, it does look like you have a strong outer eye kind of choking out the inner. But if I go to the infrared, I'll screen share the last frame, which is of roughly an hour ago. But this one shows like a pretty good eye, really, surprisingly, at least comparatively.
IR looks not that bad, but it can be.
Visibly, it looks pretty bad, though.
Yeah, on visible, it's not looking great, and on radar, it looks atrocious. However, that's the eye. That is the eye. Yep. The eye wall, however, just got a huge flare-up on radar, and is actually showing deep reds across the northern eye wall there. So that is probably even more interesting than anything else.
Yeah. I will say also, it looks like 3 hours ago in terms of like convection around the eye, it was looking worse than it does now as well. Even just an hour and a half ago compared to...
That's going to be due to the Eyewall replacement cycle as that... Man, I really need a drink of water. Yeah. As that eyewall shrinks, as that outer eyewall begins to shrink, as that eyewall continues to shrink, you're going to get that flare-up of convection, and that's what you're seeing there.
Yeah. It does seem like, at least in my opinion, as the eye really clears out, at least with the replacement cycle, looks like the eye clears out. This is actually the latest visible image. You want to take a look at this one? This is this is 1945 UTC, so this is almost 2 hours ago. Half an hour ago, 1 hour ago. That is very interesting. I'm not sure if radar confirms this or anything, but it looks like the eye's really fighting back.
Right now you're watching some imagery behind, some video from St. Lucie in Florida, and with sound, believe it or not, so you can actually hear the ambient noise in the background of the water. And what do you think the conditions are there, Devon?
Where's St. Lucie?
Further north. It's isn't it getting towards Vero Beach? I'm not quite sure. I've become a lot more acquainted with Florida geography recently. I don't know if I might have gotten wrong on that one, but
St. Lucie. I'll look it up, I guess.
Oops. Wrong page.
I've got the screen share. Well, I don't have the screen share. Now I have the screen share.
Yeah, you can take over.
Where is everything? The stream's gone. There it is. It's back. You're looking at the Force 13 page.
Awesome.
Meanwhile,
but anyways, I do want to say, as you said, that looks like that the eye is trying to fight back. The radar has become, even though the eye itself has become more clouded, the eye wall has really flared up on radar, which is interesting.
Let's get a close-up of that.
I don't really... This is about as close as I can get, Nathan.
No, I just had to bring up the image there on this end. So there it is, and you can see the direction of the storm as well is quite clearly northwest. It's going to probably graze... no, maybe a landfall, isn't it? On the Island.
Yeah, it's going to pretty much move in, this direction. Just graze this western part of the island here.
Yeah, NOAA actually have an observation station right on the western tip of that island. So,
and as it continues on, it's going to expect to get very close to Melbourne here, and potentially either pass very close or directly over Cape Canaveral as it moves parallel to the coast, pretty much right along the I-95 corridor up to Charleston.
Yep. Someone said Cat 5. Unlikely at this point it becomes a Category 5 before landfall.
No.
Slim chance.
The storm had its best opportunity to become a Cat 5 overnight, and it really blew it.
It's flopped, basically.
Yeah, it flopped.
Someone wanted to know about hurricane hunters and any news from them.
Yeah, no new center passes.
I will say the latest drop zone, I'm pretty sure, is 936.
Yep, the latest pressure is 9. The latest two drop zones, one was 936, and that landed right in the center of the eye, and the other one was 939, but it missed the eye. 936 would have been inferred from it. So yeah, 936 is the latest pressure from the recon.
Someone asked, will it hit Fort Lauderdale? You could argue it already is, really. Not necessarily the strongest winds, but outer bands and stuff are definitely there. Direct
hit, probably not. I wouldn't rule it out entirely.
But they are under hurricane warning.
Yes. But a direct hit from the Eyewall, where the Cat 2, Cat 3, Cat 4 winds are unlikely at the moment.
Yeah. See. I see someone trying to spread false information saying the winds are 925 millibar and 160 miles per hour. That is not true at all.
Let me actually take a look at the drop zone, and I will try to confirm what they're saying there.
If it is, I will be so surprised.
925 millibar, 160 miles per hour. That's absolutely correct, actually.
That
I'm not going to deny it.
Really?
It says right here on the drop zone, 925 millibars, 160 miles per hour.
So, Strat, you were
gotta
saying?
be kidding.
That's amazing.
I don't know how it did that.
Those winds are obviously not on the ground, but at the 925 millibar level, which I'm going to guess is around a half a kilometer above the ground, so a third of a mile, for the U.S. folk. Oh, I guess I'm part of that too. Why am I appropriating cultures on a live stream? Yeah, but basically about a third of a mile up off the ground here, 925 millibars. So this isn't at the surface. In fact, surface observations show 115 miles per hour at the surface in the southeastern Eyewall.
Oh, whoa.
Interesting.
So it does look like the northeast is the most robust.
But usually the drop zones, but that's also right at the surface. You got to remember that the winds are usually taken 10 meters above the surface. So it would really be more like what you would want to see, the 944 or 943 millibar winds. Those would be the actual, what we would consider to be the winds.
Yep.
So you do have to remember that winds are taken 10 meters above the surface, which is...
I mean, a lot of areas are above sea ground, obviously, on land, so pretty good
Yeah.
area to do it in particular, as long as you're not on the very coastline.
Yes,
It gives a
but
pretty accurate
also
reading.
there's also more friction associated with
Yep.
land. Those two kind of
Higher in the air you get, the stronger the winds will get.
yes, but
Port
also
St.
the further
Lucie.
inland you get, the more friction you're dealing with. So those two kind of cancel each other out.
There's some breaks in the rain going on in Port St. Lucie in that little gap area. But other than that, it's just a straight rain mostly.
Well, the
And,
camera that we've got up here is pretty much in that location.
Port
Yeah, it
St.
does look like
Lucie?
it.
It's very close. I don't know
It
where
looks-
exactly it is, but it's very close to there.
It does look just like cloudy there right now.
Don't
hard to
seem to
tell.
be raining.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Boy, whatever island this is, I don't know exactly which one it is. I'm gonna have to look it up.
Which one?
Is that Freeport,
But
the
that
northern
island
Bahama
is
island?
receiving is definitely receiving the strongest winds of the storm right now, as we're speaking.
Which
I'm
one?
not completely sure. The
This one
northern
right here,
Bahama
Nathan.
island.
The one that's about
right
to get
there.
the landfall. Yeah, Grand Bahama.
Yep, Grand Bahama right there on the west part of it. That
Now the
is
camera's
about-
rocking a little bit, and you hear the winds getting up. And actually, there's someone standing down there. You can't see him here, but
Oh God.
yes.
Is that?
Oh
Is
my
that
god!
on Grand Bahama?
Sorry.
You never know, guys. That could be Jim
That's
Cantori.
actually on the
You never know.
radar.
No, it looks like he's I don't know what he's doing.
You never know, guys. That could be Jim Cantori looking at the
Yeah,
weather.
you can't see him on the screen, but he's off shot, but you can see him there.
Yeah.
I don't know whether he's fishing or something.
Why are you fishing in a hurricane?
I don't know what he's doing.
This is complete
Well, look,
stupidity.
he appeared it's quite small. He appeared to throw something towards the water or into the water, and who knows? Maybe he'll be on the stream later.
I was just checking at the radar that was on screen just a second ago. That was primary. It looks like the inner eye wall is actually starting to push up a little bit against the northwest outer eye wall, which is something also
Again.
that is quite interesting.
Yeah. Again, subject to
Yeah, obviously, because it's
that
rotating
show-
basically.
what'll happen now is that inner eye wall will start to circulate around the outer island.
Let's
As
get a
it
question.
dissipates.
King Storm says, "Will it get any worse for Broward?"
Well, Broward County, that's the county just to the north of Miami-Dade, so I believe it's this one.
Fort Lauderdale.
Fort Lauderdale area. Yeah, it could. If this storm takes a significant jog to the west, it absolutely could. But as long as this storm stays on its track right now, conditions might continue to go downhill for the next hour or two, but then hopefully they should start to improve after that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
Coming up to 6 o'clock Eastern time, and yeah, it's a bit blustery over there at St. Lucie. I can only get up a handful of webcams now, unfortunately. I can't seem to get to. I can't seem to get a hold of any of the ones in the Miami area, though the threat would probably slowly transferring, the biggest threat at least, from Miami northwards now towards Broward County and beyond.
Someone asked what are the chances Matthew comes into Category 5 again? At least 10 meter wise.
That's
You never know for
assuming-
sure.
Hold on,
but-
that's assuming that Matthew was a Cat 5 in the first place.
Okay, well, let's
that.
rephrase that to say, will the storm become a Category 5? It seems,
I
at
would
least
put
from the
it-
10 meter, not too likely.
I would put it at a 1 in 10 chance.
So it's not
Interesting.
out of the question.
Which
Is it
seems
like
Pluto? Large. Yeah,
No,
that
not
is
really.
a lot, but
I'd agree.
it all depends on how the storm deals with this eyewall replacement cycle.
And it's not
Yep.
as if it's unprecedented. It's not too far away from where Andrew did it.
Exactly. That's why I'm saying. That's why I'm not completely discounting it. Andrew rapidly intensified in the area. Katrina rapidly intensified in the area. Gene rapidly intensified in the area.
You just about see the guy now at the bottom of the screen now, and it's quite a small figure. The camera is quite misleading. It looks like it's a small river. It's actually pretty big.
Oh, I see him.
The caveat to this is that this storm isn't moving westward like those 3 storms were. This one is moving northwestward, or maybe even northwestward. Very similar to David. So we'll have to see how the storm reacts to the different movement here.
Yeah. I also saw someone ask, where did the 925 figure come from? That was coming from a third of a mile or half a kilometer in the air, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. That recording. That's not the latest drop zone. No, that is the latest drop zone. Why are they doing drops out there? Okay, that's weird.
I guess just while they're doing a
Palm
loop.
Beach Garden, they're seeing no rain right now. Coral Springs, not much rain. Vero Beach, not much rain. So from Vero Beach all the way to Coral Springs, there's not much rain going on right now. That's a break. Just doesn't mean that you go outside in the hurricane. Absolutely not.
Okay. To zoom in here, here's where this 925 millibars goes in. So that's going to be, oh dear me, that's actually a lot closer to the ground than I thought it was. It's actually only about 1/8 of a mile off the ground, but the 925 millibars at a height of 200 meters, or about 1/8 of a mile, and the winds are moving south-southeast at 139 knots, roughly 160 miles per hour, roughly. And again, that is not occurring at the ground level. That is occurring as if you were in a rather tall skyscraper. And I don't think anybody's going to be in rather tall skyscrapers for this storm, or at least I hope they wouldn't be. I would hope that they weren't in upper levels of skyscrapers during this storm.
Yeah, just noticing that it seems to be getting a bit more windy over there at St. Lucie right now. Is there a line of rain or anything coming in? Some of the, you see some of the ripples there, the waves in a way. They're probably not waves, but some white tops there.
Yes, there is a rain band actually just offshore. Might come into West Palm Beach, in the not too distant future. There is a rain band just offshore here.
I give it an hour. Maybe 30 minutes.
What
do y'all think?
That.
So, longer than that?
I don't know if they edited this. Matthew's movement to the northwest, at least supposed northwest, is slowed down to 13 miles an hour.
Well, that would mean so it's slowing down.
It's just a little bit.
I could see the rain bands are starting to expand with this storm, including western parts of Florida. Western parts of Florida too. Not Tampa yet. Tampa hasn't seen anything, but they are about to. They're definitely about to get rocked.
Tampa actually received at least one rain band already, and they're about to receive a second one.
I don't know if it's me, actually.
And that may have gone just to the south of Tampa, but Sarasota definitely received the rain band. They got the worst of it, if you ask me.
Oh, yeah.
But this rain band going out of Orlando, definitely a heavy rain band.
Yes.
Well, we're going to take a break now as we get towards 6 o'clock Eastern Time. Stay tuned, this is Force 13 Live. We'll be back in 5 with more coverage and more webcam footage as well, hopefully. And we'll also take your questions and everything else that comes with our live coverage. Keep it right here, this is Force 13 Live.